They packed the minivan with beach toys and suitcases. Mom said I should stay home and watch the house. When they drove back 3 days later, the entire garage was empty. My bed was gone. The walls were blank like I never existed. That happened 2 years ago, and I can still remember the sound of their car pulling away without me. My name is Daniel Costa. I'm 20 years old. Back then, I believed I was just being left behind. The truth, I was being erased. My stepdad Robert said someone needs to be responsible. Mom agreed because arguing was too exhausting. So I nodded and gave them exactly what they asked for, a home with no trace of me. What I did next shocked even me. But the payback, it was the first moment I felt like I mattered. They deleted me from their vacation. I just deleted myself from their lives. After my real dad passed away, Mom found someone new faster than I could process my grief. Robert showed up with his briefcase, his rules, and a smile that looked painted on. I was 8 when he became part of our world. By 9, I was the household helper. Mowing the lawn, taking out trash, fixing broken things, tutoring my younger siblings with homework. All MY jobs. Robert called me capable. Mom said I should appreciate having responsibilities. At 11, I figured out that appreciation meant keeping quiet. At 13, I stopped asking to join family game nights. At 15, I stopped expecting birthday parties. By 18, I was basically running that entire house while Robert complained about being tired. I had a job at the local grocery store, bought my own school supplies, and cooked dinner 3 nights a week. Every task completed was another piece of my childhood vanishing. They'd pat my shoulder and say, "Good job, buddy." But praise isn't love. Praise is what you give employees. The summer before college was supposed to be my time. I thought maybe we'd do something together, finally feel like a real family. Then Robert announced at dinner, "We're taking the twins to the coast for a long weekend." I looked up from my plate, hopeful. "Oh, when do we leave?" Mom's fork paused midair. Robert cleared his throat. "Actually, Daniel, it's better if you stay behind and work. Someone needs to water the plants and keep an eye on things." Mom didn't even look at me. "He's right, honey. You'll be more useful here anyway." That word useful made my stomach twist. I used to think being useful meant being valued. Now it just sounded like being a tool. When they loaded the car that Friday morning, my little brother Jake hugged my legs. Sophie started crying and reaching for me. Robert honked the horn impatiently. Mom waved through the window with this fake smile. I stood on the front steps watching the minivan get smaller and smaller until it disappeared around the corner. Even our cat got to go with them. But not me. The quietness that filled the house after they left wasn't peaceful. It felt crushing, like being buried under invisible weight. I walked back inside and the floors creaked too loud. The refrigerator hummed too loud. My own breathing sounded too loud. Everything was too loud except for the sound of anyone caring about me. That was completely silent. I sat on the couch for what felt like HOURS, just staring at nothing. That's when I noticed something on the coffee table. Our family photo album. I opened it slowly. Page after page of smiling faces at birthday parties, holidays, vacations. Robert and Mom. The twins, even pictures of our cat, and me. I appeared in maybe 3 photos out of 50, always in the background, always slightly out of focus. Like whoever took the picture forgot I was even there. In that moment, something inside my chest just broke, not like crying broken, like something shutting off. A switch flipping to the off position. If they wanted a house without me, they were about to get their wish. That weekend they went to the beach, I went somewhere too. I went toward my freedom. The morning after they left, I woke up early. Not because I had chores, because I had a plan. The silence in the house felt different that day. It didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt like opportunity. I made a list on my phone. Every single thing in that house that belonged to me. My furniture, my books, my computer, my TV, my clothes, my posters, even the microwave I bought with my own money. Everything. Then I called my best friend Chris. "Hey man, I need a huge favor. Can you help me move some stuff today?" He showed up 30 minutes later with his dad's pickup truck and didn't ask a single question. He just looked at my face and said, "Let's do this." We started with my bedroom. The bed frame I assembled myself. The desk I saved 3 months to buy. The bookshelf I painted blue. Every piece came apart and went into that truck. Trip after trip to a storage unit I rented across town. By noon, my room was completely empty. Just bare walls and carpet with those little dents where furniture used to be. It looked like a ghost lived there. Or maybe like a ghost stopped living there. Next came the family room. I took the gaming console I bought. The speakers I won in a school raffle. The beanbag chair that was mine. Every item that had my name on it, my money behind it, my MEMORIES attached to it. Gone. Chris helped me load a lamp, a coffee maker, and even the good pots and pans I'd bought because the old ones were falling apart. "Dude, are you sure about this?" he asked, sweating as we carried my mattress down the stairs. "I've never been more sure about anything in my entire life," I told him, and I meant it. The most important part came next. The photo wall in the hallway, every picture frame that had my face in it. I took them down one by one, slowly, carefully. Behind each frame was a rectangle of paint slightly brighter than the rest of the wall, like a shadow in reverse, like proof that I used to exist in this family. I wrapped each photo in newspaper and packed them in a box labeled MEMORIES. When I stepped back and looked at that wall, it looked incomplete, full of holes, like a puzzle with missing PIECES. Perfect. In the kitchen, I removed the calendar with MY handwriting on it, the shopping list I always made. The birthday chart where MY name was written in the smallest letters. I took photos with my phone, before and after shots of every single room, documentation of exactly how much space I used to fill, evidence of how easy it was to erase me. By Saturday night, I wasn't sad anymore. I felt calm, crystal clear. When Chris's older sister, Melissa, called and offered me their guest room, I didn't hesitate this time. She'd been telling me for months that I could stay with them. I always said no because I felt guilty about leaving the twins. But that evening, something clicked. I wasn't abandoning the twins. I was escaping the people who forgot I was their kid, too. Melissa arrived with her boyfriend and a warm smile. She took one look around the house and her eyes got watery. "Daniel, sweetheart, this place was never a home for you, was it?" I shook my head, not trusting my voice. They helped me pack the last boxes. My clothes, my shoes, my toiletries, things that made me me. When I closed the front door and locked it behind me, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free, like a bird that finally realized the cage door was open. The sky outside was turning pink and orange. The air smelled like fresh cut grass and new possibilities. For the first time in YEARS, the path in front of me didn't feel scary. It felt like an invitation. As we drove away, the side mirror showed my reflection. Half my face in sunlight, half in shadow. For the first time, I liked both halves. I glanced back one time, just long enough to see the porch light flicker on automatically. That house had been my prison. Now it was just another building getting smaller in the distance. If they wanted to see what family time without me looked like, I made sure they got it. They returned Sunday evening, sunburned and loud, laughing about ice cream and waves and sandcastles. I wasn't there to witness it, but I could imagine every single detail. Mom fumbling with her keys, Robert hauling the cooler from the trunk, Jake and Sophie running ahead arguing about who saw more DOLPHINS. Then silence. The kind of silence that SCRAMS. The entryway looked wrong. The coat rack where my jacket always hung was empty. The shoe mat had gaps where my sneakers used to sit. They probably thought I just cleaned up. Made everything neat, until they walked deeper. My bedroom door wide open, nothing inside, not even dust. The closet empty, drawers pulled out and abandoned, just the ghost of a son who used to sleep there. The family room next, half the electronics missing. Empty spaces on the entertainment center. No gaming console, no controllers, no beanbag chair. The hallway. Blank rectangles on the wall where pictures used to hang. Like someone took an eraser to our family history. Robert's face probably turned red, that vein on his forehead pulsing. Mom's hand probably flew to her mouth. The twins probably got scared and started asking QESTONS. On the kitchen table, I left an envelope, plain white. Their names written on the front in my handwriting. Inside my letter, every word chosen like ammunition. "Since you wanted family time without me, I decided to give you a preview of what that actually looks like. I've moved out. Everything I took belonged to me. Bought with MY money, earned through MY work. Nothing here was stolen except maybe the years I spent believing I was part of this family. Thank you, Robert, for teaching me that being capable means being used. Thank you, Mom, for showing me that silence can hurt worse than screaming. I told Jake and Sophie I love them, but love doesn't mean staying somewhere you're invisible, staying somewhere that makes you feel like a ghost." Next to the letter, I left my house key. Right beside it, a printed job listing from the internet. The headline read WANTED, live-in housekeeper. Robert would have read that line and felt his chest get tight. Mom would have realized I hadn't run away like some angry kid. I had quit. Like an employee who'd had enough. Jake probably cried first. calling my name into the empty rooms. Sophie probably wandered around confused asking when Danny was coming home. But no one could answer. Not this time. Robert's voice probably cracked. Mom probably sat down on the floor and cried real tears. The sound of something breaking in the kitchen was probably the only response the house gave. The silence that used to belong to me now swallowed them whole. When Melissa texted me, "They're home," I imagined Robert packing in circles. Mom staring at my empty bedroom doorway. Both of them finally understanding how much space one person can fill, and how loud the absence becomes when they're gone. I didn't text back. I sat outside on Melissa's porch, watching the neighborhood lights blink on one by one. The evening air was cool and smelled like barbecue from someone's backyard. I heard kids laughing somewhere down the street. Normal family sounds. The kind I used to wish for. For the first time in forever, the silence around me didn't ache. It healed. It was mine. And as darkness covered their picture-perfect house across town, I smiled. Not because I wanted to hurt them. Because I finally chose me. Because sometimes the quietest revenge isn't yelling or breaking things. Sometimes it's just walking away and never looking back. They thought I disappeared for good. They had no idea what was coming next, but here's the thing. What happened next changed everything. The following morning, my phone started exploding, buzzing nonstop like an angry hornet. Unknown number first, then Robert, then Mom. Again and again and again. I ignored the first 7 calls. Let them go to voicemail, but on the 8th call I picked up. "Daniel, you get back to this house right now." Robert's voice was sharp and angry. "You can't just leave like this. This is completely unacceptable." "Actually," I said quietly, "I can and I did." Silence on the other end. The kind of silence that happens when someone realizes they're wrong. "You're being childish," he snapped. "Come back so we can discuss this like adults." "Discuss," I repeated. "When was the last time you discussed anything with me, Robert? When was the last time you asked how I felt, or what I WNTD, or if I was okay?" No answer, just breathing, heavy and uneven. Then Mom's voice came through. She must have grabbed the phone. "Daniel, this is ridiculous. You can't just abandon your RESPONSIBLATIS. What about Jake and Sophie? They're asking for you." "What responsibilities?" I asked, my voice getting stronger. "The ones you forced on me. The ones I never agreed to. I'm not their parent, I'm their brother." "You're being selfish," she said, and her voice was shaking. "The kids love you. How can you hurt them like this?" "I didn't hurt anyone," I said firmly. "You did. The day you made me feel like I only mattered when I was being useful. The day you chose a beach trip over including your own son." Her breath caught. I could almost hear her blinking back tears, trying to find words that didn't exist. "You wanted family time without me," I continued. "Well, now you know what that feels like. Enjoy it." I hung up. For a while I just stared at the phone in my hand, feeling both empty and weightless at the same time, like a balloon someone finally let go. Then it rang again. This time it was Jake. His little voice cracked. "Danny, why did you leave? Mom's crying, Robert's yelling, Sophie doesn't understand." My heart squeezed. "Buddy, listen to me. You didn't do anything wrong. None of this is your fault." "Then why can't you come home?" he asked, sniffling. "Because Jake," I said slowly, carefully. "Sometimes you have to leave a place so the people there can realize what they had and what they lost." He started crying harder. I bit the inside of my cheek to keep my voice steady. "Tell Sophie I love her," I whispered, "and tell her I'll always be her big brother, no matter where I am." After I hung up, I sat on the porch steps of Melissa's house. The sun was breaking through the clouds, rays of light cutting through like SPOTLIGHTS. It felt like the sky itself was taking a deep breath. Melissa came outside with 2 mugs of hot chocolate. She didn't ask me a million questions. She just sat down next to me in silence, the good kind of silence, the kind that feels safe. "You did the right thing," she said after a while. "They needed to wake up. And you needed peace." I nodded. My eyes were burning, but I didn't cry. "I don't know if I wanted revenge or just freedom," I admitted. "Maybe both," she said gently. "And that's okay." I smiled for the first time that day. For once, I didn't have to apologize for choosing myself. But that was only the beginning, because the next call I got changed everything. It came that evening just as the sun was setting, a number I almost didn't recognize. When I answered, a voice I never expected trembled on the other end. "Daniel," Mom whispered, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Her tone wasn't angry anymore. It wasn't defensive or fake. It was scared. It was human. And for the first time, I realized this story wasn't over. It was just turning. And what she said next broke down every wall I thought I'd built. "Daniel," Mom whispered again, her voice barely holding together. I need to ask you something. Did we really treat you that badly? For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. All those years of being forgotten, being used, being treated like I was invisible, it all came rushing back. I don't know what you want me to say, I replied softly. You already know the answer, Mom. She started crying, real crying this time, not the kind she did to get sympathy, the kind that comes from deep inside. I was so wrong, she said between sobs. I thought if I just kept the peace with Robert, everything would work out, but all I did was push you away. I made you feel like you didn't matter. Her confession didn't make me feel victorious. It made me feel still, like a lake after a storm. You can't change what happened, I said quietly, but you can stop pretending it didn't hurt me. I want to do better, she whispered. Not for me, for Jake and Sophie. They need to see what real family looks like, and I failed at showing them that. That line, SOFTNED, something inside me. Because even though I was angry, even though I was hurt, those kids still mattered to me. They always would. We talked for almost an hour, about hurt, about BOUNDRES, about how love shouldn't come with conditions. She didn't beg me to come back home. She asked how she could make things right. And for the first time in my entire life, Mom actually LISDNED. Really, truly LISDNED. Not with her mouth already forming the next excuse, but with her heart open. And I realized something important. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It means choosing peace over being right all the time. It means letting go of the weight so you can finally breathe. When we hung up, I walked outside into the cool evening air. It smelled like rain that hadn't fallen yet, like new BGNNNGS. Melissa was in the garden pulling weeds. She looked up, saw my face, and smiled. Feels different now, doesn't it? She asked. Yeah, I said, my voice soft. It does. Because healing isn't loud, she said, standing up and brushing dirt off her hands. It's the quiet return of your own heartbeat. It's learning to breathe without permission. I nodded. For the first time in YEARS, my chest didn't feel tight. Weeks went by. Slowly, carefully, we started REBULDING, not the old relationship. That one was broken beyond repair, but a new one. One built on honesty, on respect, on actually seeing each other. Robert apologized too. It was stiff and uncomfortable, but it was real. He admitted he treated me like an employee instead of a son. He said he didn't know how to be a stepdad and took the easy route of just giving me CHORES. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was a start. One Saturday afternoon, we all met at a park. Neutral ground. No one's house. No one's rules, just BNCHES and trees and open sky. Jake ran to me the second he saw me, wrapped his arms around my waist and wouldn't let go. Sophie climbed onto my lap and said, I missed you so much, Danny. And even though I was still healing, even though there were scars, I hugged them back, because love for them was never the problem. The problem was the people who made me feel like love wasn't enough. Mom sat across from me, hands folded in her lap. I'm not asking you to come back, she said carefully. I'm just asking if we can start over, slowly, on your terms. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw something I hadn't seen in YEARS. Regret. Real, deep, painful regret. I'm willing to try, I said. But things are going to be different now. I'm not your helper, I'm not your backup plan, I'm your son, and I deserve to be treated like one. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I know, and I'm so sorry it took me this long to see it. That afternoon, we didn't solve everything. We didn't hug and cry and pretend the past DISAPPARED. But we took the first step, and sometimes that's all you can do. Just take one step towards something better. Robert even offered to help me move my stuff back if I wanted. I DECLINED, not out of spite, but because I needed to keep my independence. My new space with Melissa's family was mine, a place where I wasn't useful, I was just welcome. Over the next few months, things shifted. I started visiting the house again, not living there, just visiting. I'd have dinner with the twins, play games with them, read bedtime stories like I used to. But when it was time to go, I left. And no one stopped me. No one made me feel guilty because they finally understood. I wasn't running away, I was choosing myself. And that was my right. Mom started therapy. She told me one day over coffee. I'm learning how I repeated PATTRNS from my own childhood, she said quietly. I'm learning how to break them. I was proud of her for that. Healing isn't just for the person who got hurt. Sometimes the person who caused the hurt needs to heal too. One evening, Jake asked me, Danny, are you still mad at us? I thought about it for a moment. I'm not mad anymore, buddy, I said honestly. I'm just different now, I grew up. In a good way, he asked. In the best way, I said, ruffling his hair, because the truth was, leaving that house was the best thing I ever did, not because I wanted to hurt anyone, but because I needed to save myself. And sometimes saving yourself looks like walking away. Sometimes it looks like stripping your room bare and leaving a key on the counter. Sometimes it looks like scary and feels like falling. But on the other side, it feels like flying. If you've ever had to walk away from family to find peace, this story is for you. You don't need their permission to start over. You don't need their approval to choose yourself. You just need the courage to take that first step. And then another. And then another. If you've been through something like this, know that you're not alone. Thousands of people are watching this right now who understand exactly what you're feeling. You're not broken. You're not selfish. You're surviving. And that takes more strength than people realize. Have you ever faced something like this? A moment where you had to choose between staying and surviving? Tell me in the COMMENTS. I read every single one. Your story matters. Your pain is real. And your decision to choose yourself, that's not revenge. That's self-love. They tried to make me invisible. I chose to make myself unforgettable. Not through anger, not through destruction, but through the simple, powerful act of saying, I deserve better. And then BLAVNG it. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like. Share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Someone who's been feeling invisible. Someone who's been waiting for permission to leave. Tell them they don't need permission. They just need courage. Don't forget to subscribe to Iron Revenge for more true stories. Stories that remind us we're stronger than we think. That we're braver than we feel. That sometimes the best revenge is just living well, living free, living on our own terms. So here's what I want you to remember. If your family makes you feel like you're only valuable when you're being useful, that's not love. That's exploitation. If you're always the one giving and never the one receiving, that's not balance. That's abuse. If they only notice you when you're gone, then maybe being gone is exactly where you need to be. Not forever, not as punishment, but long enough to remember who you are without them. Long enough to heal, long enough to build boundaries that protect your peace. I'm not saying cut off your family forever. I'm saying choose yourself first. Put on your own oxygen mask before helping others, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And I had been empty for years. The day I left wasn't the day I gave up. It was the day I finally showed up for myself. And that made all the difference. So if you're sitting there right now, feeling invisible, feeling used, feeling like you're just a tool in someone else's toolbox, hear me clearly. You are more than that. You are more than your usefulness. You are more than the chores you do or the money you bring in. You are a whole person, with feelings, with DREAMS, with a heart that deserves to be loved, not used. And if the people around you can't see that, then maybe it's time to find people who can. People like Melissa, who opened her home without asking for anything in return. People like Chris, who showed up with a truck and didn't ask QESTONS. People who see your worth without you having to prove it every single day. Those are your real family, because family isn't just about blood, it's about who shows up, who LISDNS, who makes you feel seen. I found my real family the day I walked out that door. And yeah, it hurt. Yeah, it was scary. Yeah, there were nights I cried myself to sleep wondering if I made the right choice. But every morning I woke up in that guest room, I felt a little more like myself, a little less like a shadow, a little more like someone who mattered. And that was worth everything. So don't be afraid to leave. Don't be afraid to choose peace over pretending. Don't be afraid to walk away from people who only love you when you're convenient, because the right people will love you even when you're inconvenient. Even when you're messy, even when you're broken, they'll love you because you're you, not because of what you can do for them. And that's the kind of love worth holding on to. Everything else, let it go. Let it fade into the REARVIEW mirror. Let it become a lesson instead of a life sentence. You deserve better. Say it with me. I deserve better. I deserve to be loved. I deserve to be seen. I deserve peace. And I'm brave enough to choose it, even if it means walking away. Even if it means starting over. Even if it means being alone for a while, because being alone is better than being invisible. Being alone is better than being used. And sometimes being alone is exactly what you need to remember who you are. So here's my challenge to you. If you're in a situation like I was, start documenting everything. Keep RECIPTS. Take photos. Write down how you feel. Not because you're planning revenge, but because you're building a case for your own freedom. You're gathering evidence that your feelings are valid. Your pain is real. That you're not crazy or dramatic or selfish. You're just human, a human who deserves respect. And when the time comes when you're ready to leave, you'll have everything you need to walk away with your head held high. You'll have proof. Not for them. For you, so you never doubt your decision. So you never let them gaslight you into thinking you overreacted, because you just finally reacted appropriately. And that's not something to be ashamed of. That's something to be proud of. I'm proud of the Daniel who packed that truck. I'm proud of the Daniel who left that key. I'm proud of the Daniel who answered that phone call and said, I can, and I did. Because that Daniel was braver than the one who stayed silent for years. That Daniel chose himself. And that's the Daniel I am today. Stronger, clearer, free. So if you take anything from this story, take this. Your peace is not negotiable. Your worth is not up for debate. And your happiness is not selfish. It's necessary. It's vital. It's your birthright. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Not your parents, not your family. Not even that voice in your head that sounds like guilt, because guilt is just conditioning. It's what happens when you're taught that your needs don't matter. But they do matter. You matter. And the sooner you believe that, the sooner you can start building the life you deserve. A life where you're not just surviving, you're thriving. A life where you're not just useful, you're valued. A life where you're not just present, you're celebrated. That life is waiting for you. It's on the other side of that door, the one you're afraid to walk through. But here's the secret. The door isn't locked. It never was. You've had the key the whole time. You just needed permission to use it. So here's your permission. From me to you, leave. If you need to leave, take your stuff, take your peace. Take your future, and don't look back. Not with anger, not with regret, but with gratitude. Gratitude that you were brave enough to choose yourself, that you were strong enough to walk away, that you were wise enough to know you deserved better. And one day, maybe months from now, maybe years from now, you'll look back on this moment, this decision, this leap of faith, and you'll smile, not because it was easy, but because it was worth it, because you were worth it. And that's the greatest revenge of all. Not hurting them, but healing yourself. Not making them pay, but making yourself whole. Not proving them wrong, but proving to yourself that you were always enough. So go ahead, strip that room bare if you need to. Leave that key on the counter, write that letter, take those photos, pack that truck, and drive toward the life that's waiting for you. The one where you're not a shadow, you're the sun. The one where you're not background noise, you're the song. The one where you're not just surviving, you're alive. Fully, beautifully, unapologetically alive. And when they come back and find you gone, when they see those empty walls and blank spaces, let them sit in that silence. Let them feel what it's like to lose someone they took for granted, not because you want them to suffer, but because they need to learn. They need to understand. They need to know that people aren't tools, people aren't furniture. People are human beings with hearts that can break. And when you break someone's heart enough times, eventually they leave, and they don't come back. Not because they don't love you, but because they finally learn to love themselves more. And that's not betrayal, that's growth, that's healing, that's freedom. So here's to everyone who's ever felt invisible. Here's to everyone who's ever been taken for granted. Here's to everyone who's ever had to leave to finally be seen. This story is for you. This message is for you. This hope is for you. You're not alone. You're not wrong. And you're not selfish. You're just done, and being done is the first step to being free. So take that step. Today, right now, don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for them to change, because they might never change. And you can't build your happiness on someone else's maybe. Build it on your yes, your choice, your courage. The months that followed my leaving taught me something important. Healing isn't linear. Some days I woke up feeling strong. Other days I woke up feeling guilty. Some mornings I was proud of myself. Other mornings I wondered if I'd made a mistake. But you know what? That's normal. That's human. Change is messy. Growth is uncomfortable. And breaking free from people who conditioned you to stay small, that's terrifying, but it's also necessary. One afternoon, about 4 months after I left, I ran into Robert at the grocery store. My heart stopped. I almost turned around and walked the other way. But then something inside me said no. You don't have to run anymore, so I kept walking. He saw me too. For a second, we just stared at each other across the produce section. Then he walked over. Daniel, he said quietly. Can we talk? I nodded. We stepped outside into the parking lot. The sun was setting and everything looked golden. I've been wanting to say something to you for a while now, Robert began. His voice was different, softer, humbler. I was wrong about everything, the way I treated you. The way I made you feel like you were just hired help instead of family. I didn't say anything. I just listened. Your mom and I have been going to therapy, he continued. And I've realized how much damage I caused, not just to you, but to the whole family. I turned our home into a business, and I made you the employee. He looked down at his shoes. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve that, but I needed you to know that I see it now. I see what I did, and I'm sorry. Hearing those words I'd waited years to hear, didn't feel like victory. It felt like relief, like finally being BLIVD. Thank you for saying that, I told him. It doesn't erase what happened, but it means something that you're trying. He nodded. I'm trying to be better for the twins, for your mom, and honestly, for myself too. We stood there for another minute, not hugging, not pretending everything was fixed, just two people acknowledging the truth. When I drove away from that parking lot, I felt lighter, not because he apologized, but because I didn't need his apology to know my worth anymore. I already knew. A few weeks later, I visited the house for Jake's birthday party. It was the first time I'd been back since I left. Walking through that front door felt strange, like visiting a museum of my old life. But this time was different. This time, Mom hugged me at the door, really hugged me, not the quick side hug she used to give. A real one. I'm so glad you came, she whispered. The house looked different too. Not just because my stuff was gone, but because the energy had changed. It felt less tense, less fake, more real. Jake ran up to me screaming. "DANNY, you came." Sophie jumped into my arms, and for those few hours we were just a family, an imperfect one, a healing one, but a family nonetheless. Before I left that night, Mom pulled me aside. "I know things can never go back to how they were," she said softly. "And honestly, I don't want them to. The old way was broken. I want to build something new, something better, if you're willing to try." I looked at her, really looked at her. And I saw a woman who was finally taking responsibility, finally doing the work. "I'm willing," I said, "but it has to be on MY terms. I'm not moving back. I'm not going back to being the helper. I'm your son, and that's all I should have to be." "Agreed," she said, tears in her eyes. "Just being my son is more than enough." So here we are, 2 years later. I'm 20 years old. I live with Melissa's family in a room that's mine. I'm taking classes at community college. I'm working part-time. I'm building a life that belongs to me. I visit my family regularly, but I don't live there. I don't belong to them. I belong to myself first. And that's the difference. That's the boundary. That's the freedom. I'm Daniel Costa. I used to be invisible. Now I'm just free. Free to be myself. Free to choose my own family. Free to live without apology. And if my story helped you in any way, if it made you feel less alone, if it gave you even a tiny bit of courage, then please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's feeling invisible right now. Someone who's waiting for permission to choose themselves. Tell them they don't need permission. They just need courage. And subscribe to Iron Revenge for more stories like this. Stories of people who chose peace over pretending. Stories of people who walked away and found themselves. Stories that remind us that sometimes the best revenge isn't hurting someone else. It's healing yourself. Drop a comment and tell me your story. Have you ever had to leave to finally be seen? Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Have you ever stripped your room bare and walked out? Tell me. I read every single comment. Your story matters. Your voice deserves to be heard. Your pain is valid. And your decision to choose you, that's not selfish, that's survival. Thank you for watching until the very end. That tells me you're serious about change. That tells me you're ready for something better. And that's the first step to everything. See you in the next video. And remember, always remember, you're not selfish for choosing yourself. You're surviving, and survival. That's the BRAVEST thing anyone can do.